Arlene, you keep saying microaggressions and you keep saying microaggressions, but when you're going through that, that feels like a micro disaster. When you're the one who's getting bullied day in and day out, the term microaggression seems almost minimizing it. When the person is going through it, it truly is death by 10,000 paper cuts, and it's brutal.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Living Out Loud discussion series. Today we are talking about violence prevention as part of DEI work in professional settings, and we'll be talking with Arlene Limas. I'll introduce her in a moment. I am your host, Charmaine Utz, a relational DEI expert. If you are new here, we are unpacking real life scenarios and issues that come up in various professional settings or in those places where we feel like we need to be buttoned up. The goal of every single episode is to reveal the layers and the nuances in those interactions so that we can learn about them as a community that cares about diversity, equity, and inclusion. As always, the thoughts, views, the things that I share in today's discussion, those are my own and not as a representative of any of the agencies that I work for or am contracted by. All right, with me, I have Arlene Limas. Thank you so much for being here today.
Having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
Me too. I met you not that long ago. We were at a networking event and I actually met you prior to that. We were on a panel together and you and I connected one-on-one prior to that. And as soon as you started telling me your story and your journey, even though I did not know you, I just felt like I knew you. You are very engaging and honest and authentic. And I remember being so excited to meet you in person. And then when I did, you have a presence. You have an honest and authentic presence. And I feel like I learn from you whenever I share space with you. I've never told you that, but I want you to know that I'm not making that up. That is so real. So I am already knowing we're going to have a good convo today.
Yeah. Our conversations are always great. And likewise, I feel like we have a real connection, even over Zoom when we first met. But then when we did have the opportunity to share some space on that panel, it was fantastic. And you did a fantastic job moderating that panel, by the way. But yeah, that was a great event for us to connect that. And then this continued relationship that we have, it's been great.
Yes. Thank you for the compliments. All right. Would you mind introducing yourself? Share anything that you would like before we begin.
Sure. My name is Arlene Limas. I always start off my introduction with I'm a lifelong martial artist. I don't know life without martial arts. I started when I was 5. So I have really not much memory of not kicking and punching or being in a martial arts school or learning about martial arts. And it's really shaped me. It shaped me in my philosophy, but it's also shaped me in my fitness as martial arts then evolved to a sport for me. And I competed all around the world, winning a gold medal in the Olympics in 1988 for the sport of Taekwondo. And then led me to coaching. I was one of the national coaches for several years, teaching and coaching. And all that time, as a young martial artist, as a young athlete, I started to notice things like coaches pulling me aside and saying, hey, you need to stay away from that person, or identifying inappropriate relationships. So I began self-advocating first, and then advocating for a team that I may have been on or my athletes, and really just trying to create safer spaces and safer relationships so that people could thrive. In that realm, it was to be a good martial artist or a great athlete or achieve your goals in sport. And now the realm that I'm using is to create safer spaces in the workplace with what we call human safety skills. So learning how to set a boundary, learning how to use your voice, learning how to have the communication skills to be a good bystander or upstander, those type of things. And just really, in its simplest form, really understanding that you bring yourself into every event, and the good and the bad. Right? You bring all your experiences into that. And If you could just understand when you're a little adrenalized, when you're feeling a little tense or sweaty, that's influencing how you're interacting in that event. And that does a lot of good.
Mm. I want to actually remember this term. You just said it. You referred to it as safety something.
Human safety skills. Yeah, that's what
Okay.
we call it. Yeah.
Human safety skills. I'm going to have to remember that. I remember even in preparing for this conversation, we were talking about violence prevention. There was a light bulb that went off for me that a lot of DEI work is about the concepts. It's about violence prevention. It's just not not a topic. It's not a term I used. And I started thinking about how we refer to trust and safety building in the workplace and some of the aspects of learning self and your own responses and all of that other stuff. And I think a really cool place to start, or a good place to start, is talking about that, like violence prevention. Like, what is it? Why aren't we talking about it that explicitly in workplaces? We might be able to demystify some of that. So if you have anything to share on it, that would be so helpful.
Well, first of all, I think the word violence is really strange. It just creates so much pushback for people to have to acknowledge that violence is happening. If it's happening in their home, if it's happening in their workplace, if it's happening in their neighborhood, everybody has so much pushback. And I think that's what perpetuates it so strongly, that we don't just acknowledge it. Violence is happening every day. And remember, OSHA describes violence. The definition of violence is everything from microaggression to full-blown physical or psychological event, right? It doesn't have to be an active shooter situation in the workplace to be considered violence. It can be a form of bullying. It can be gaslighting. It can be mistreatment by omission. If someone is being omitted from meetings or activities, all those things fall under the definition of violence. And I would argue it's those things on this side of the spectrum, like microaggressions, bullying, gaslighting, that lead up to those physical events, or lead up to a person just leaving or not being present. They're there, but they're not present. So all those things influence the workplace, its productivity, and your experience there. Violence is occurring every day. We need to stop pushing back on it, shed some light on it, have discussions about it, and really, that's where the change is going to come. That's, in my humble opinion, that's what I believe.
No, I get that. There are certain things that I feel this is true, and I don't care what people think about it, and then I recognize it's my opinion.
Yeah.
But also, there's so much truth to what you're saying. Like saying violence feels so like almost charged. I liken it to when people say or experience someone saying white supremacy culture. It comes with like, it's too much. It's too serious. But violence is super serious. It's just not the term that I hear a lot. And even though I don't hear it, that doesn't mean it's not actually what's happening. And there's some people in my circles or places that I teach. There's some people that are very clear and confident in using that language. And I can see and feel in groups that there's this feeling of why is it so serious? I get that that's not a good thing, but why are we saying violence because people associate, like you said, those bigger types of incidents. So I appreciate even that spectrum of it could be the things that we think are very small all the way to these larger things. And often those smaller things build up to something more significant.
And it's death by, to me, it's death by 10,000 paper cuts, right? That's how it feels when you're in it. And we have an incredible advisory team for PAVE. And one of the gentlemen, Dr. Pete Margella, he's done a lot of disaster preparedness through several White House changeovers. So he's worked with several administrations, and he is well aware of what it feels like to be a survivor of violence. And he shared at one point, Arlene, you keep saying microaggressions and you keep saying microaggressions, but when you're going through that feels like a micro disaster. When you're the one who's getting bullied day in and day out, the term microaggression seems almost minimizing it. When the person is going through it, it truly is death by 10,000 paper cuts, and it's brutal. And if you're look at the healthcare sector, right? Nurses, let's just use nurses because it's prevalent throughout every position within the healthcare sector. They're dealing with harassment from coworkers. They're dealing with violence with a family member that has at their wit's end because a loved one is sick or hurt. They're dealing with patients that may not have all their faculties and they're violent, and we're not supporting them. We're not helping them with those violent events that they're dealing with every day.
Mm. Mm. We probably will get into this. I was just having my own thought. Like just this week, I was in a situation. No, not this week, last week. I was in a meeting. Something happened, and I had this response. This response wasn't about that moment. It wasn't. It was a lot of things that contributed to the moment. And I just had this response. And then I had to talk my way through it with this group of people. And I realized, you know what? Because of these things, and then other stuff that had nothing to do with the people in the setting, I was just so activated. I was like, I didn't want to hear one more thing about that topic. That's enough. Like, it just was so much.
Yeah. We bring ourselves to every event, and you brought yourself. The good thing is that you realized it. You were able to have a conversation about it. Those are the type of cultures we're trying to create. And I know you're trying to create those cultures as well. I mean, no one is perfect. We have another person in our network, and I love this saying, we need to normalize mistakes and have conversations around intent. I love that statement.
Yes, I do too.
When she shared that statement, how nice would it be if we could just like really, truly feel comfortable going, man, I made a mistake. A lot of places, you don't have that luxury. So, but we do, and this is a big conversation that we have and we try to instill in our trainings is, why am I feeling the way I feel right now? Okay, what are my expectations? Especially when we're working, I'll use the example, we've done some training with the Oakland Community Responder Program called Macro. We gave them a check-in process, like how to check into every event. Like before you go into that event, have these series of questions for yourself. So you're ready, right? You're like, what is my best outcome? What am I looking for? I've just got a call for an unhoused person who's not wearing much clothing. And what is the outcome you're looking for? And then going through like several of the people who went through the training had been unhoused at some point in their life. So they're bringing that to that. They're bringing that to that call right then. So have that little checklist with yourself before you enter the event. What do I want out of this? How am I feeling really about it? So that then you can go in safely to that event, not sidetracked, not adrenalized in a way that could hurt your own safety while you're responding. It seems simple, but it's what's going on here? What's going on here? That's the question we tell people to ask all the time. What's going on here? Is it me? How am I entering into this situation?
Oh my gosh. I love everything that you're saying. And I remember when we were talking about what will we talk about today and how would we frame it, you had told me we're doing a lot of similar things.
Right.
You said that. And I knew it was true, but I didn't know all of the nuances. And even what you're saying right now, I love it. The support to help people experience themselves and know what's happening in themselves, and then to prepare before going into something, like how significant that is, and that impacts then how we interact with other people, the people that we're serving, the people that we work with. Oh my gosh, just thank you for that. I'm also thinking, okay, so there's the aspect of addressing this in various professional settings, workplaces, that is really great. And then you also shined a little light on that it's not the easiest thing to do. So I'm also wondering, like, what has been your experience of normalizing violence prevention, human safety? Oh gosh, I forgot our human safety skills. Yeah. That can't just be like, here's the information, everyone, go do it. It's got to come with great things and difficult things. So what has that process been like?
Well, during our training, we have really difficult conversations. We're having the hard conversations. I remember very clearly a heated situation in our first macro training because we had a Caucasian. One of our trainers was Caucasian, and one of the macro responders was really struggling with being activated as a paramedic who has shown up for people of color and shown up for people who are not of color, and those people not received her. And so she was having really, really activation, taking information from this trainer. It was difficult. And it just boom, which was exactly what we wanted it to do. So we could have real conversations around it. And by the end of the training, there was this mutual respect. There was this, I learned something from you. You learned something from me. We had the difficult conversations. And that's what has to happen. That's what has to happen as people move forward. One, because it is an acknowledgement that I see you. I hear you. I get it. I might not even get it. Let me say that. I might not get it, but I'm giving you my attention, my respect. I'm hearing you. And that's what has to happen. And then you move forward from there. And some of those moves maybe we ain't going to be here anymore, but at least there's a mutual respect that we hear each other and see each other. It's important. Another way that I think is really important in our training is we're deeply scenario based and we work. It is our goal in a trauma-informed way to adrenalize people during these scenarios. Because one, we're able to have more meaningful conversation post-scenario, but two, the lesson lands on our brain and into our DNA differently when we're adrenalized, and we retain it much quicker. So that's our goal with our trainings. And it is, we do probably equal amount of training as we do grounding, because it's that important that we do get ourselves adrenalized, but then we're able to ground, breathe, refocus, and really have some meaningful conversations for them. But I think that's the secret sauce for what we do. In addition to our assessments, all the work we do beforehand to set the training in a very customizable way. It's not a module that you're doing on your computer that's supposed to prepare you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Arlene, you don't even know how much you're speaking my language. Oh gosh.
No, I mean, I think that this needs to be hit. This is not a one answer and done. Pave needs to come in there. You need to come in there. There needs to be more team building. There needs to be more leadership. This is truly taking a village approach to how we create safer culture. And we haven't even touched upon the trauma and the pain that doesn't happen at work, but we bring it to work, right? I mean, we haven't even talked about that.
I actually kind of want to do that. I have two thoughts. I'm like, which one to pick? Can I just really quickly branch off and ask you a question? And then I would love to make sure that we do our due diligence and talk about the trauma outside of, because that's absolutely part of it. When you're talking, I refer to what you were describing as the experiences and the scenario-based learning as experiential learning, and that's a thing that is not as common when teaching people this layered level, this activating type of life that we all experience. You can't just, like you said, you can't just get it in watch that video. You have to feel it and experience. So I love that concept of we're creating safety so that we can create these experiences where you feel them in the moment, because this is how we're going to help you know what you're experiencing, what it means, and how to do something in a moment and with people. And my question is, what's my question? I'm going to frame it as a statement, then a question. I haven't seen that skill set to facilitate that is very, very common, but I know that you and your facilitators have that skill set developed. And like, how did you develop the skill set to provide that type of experience and learning for people?
Wow. Well, I'm gonna back us up then and share with you that this idea of human safety skills and paid prevention and taking this type of training into the workplace all came under the idea that we do most of our adult learning at work. So if we can impart these skills at work and it does a corporation or a business good, fantastic. Yeah. But what we really are trying to do is to create individuals that have this skill set. Mm-hmm. So if it gives you more cohesion at your company, super duper.
Yeah.
It really was about empowering the individual who will then use these skills everywhere. So that was the first thought on PAVE. How can we get to more people? Because before PAVE, and for the last 40 or 50 years, there have been a group of people doing empowerment self-defense. And empowerment self-defense is this skill set, but really targeted towards gender-based violence. And so the community, about 6 or 7 years ago, created an incubator where we could discuss how can we get these skills to other people. We know we're doing good with these skills. We know it's working in this through this gender-based violence community. How can we get it to more people? Okay. Some people are going to do this way. We're going to do train the trainer programs. We're going to do this, and we're going to take this skill set. We're going to package it in a way that corporations and institutions will listen to us. And that's how PAVE was born. And instead of calling it empowerment self-defense, or instead of calling it something that may push people back, we created a whole new language around it. Human safety skills. Those are the things. And that's how PAVE came about. But it is through years and years of people teaching trauma-informed training, adrenalized training, what did you call it? Experiential. Yes. They have been doing this. Our community, the empowerment self-defense community, has been taking this style training for 40 or 50 years now and honing their skills through suited attackers, through non-suited attackers, so physical contact and non-physical contact, and learning the lessons accordingly. And that's where PAVE grew out of.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And it also makes me think about, I don't even know how to say this in a way that, I'm just going to say it. There's the reality that we have to learn through the moments that we're actually trying not to experience, because it's really hard to learn what to do. So it also comes with people desire to not experience harm or violence. And that makes so much sense. Who wants to do that? We're working to not experience. But in hearing your journey and even knowing experiential learning and what it's meant to do, we're not going to, how can I say that? I don't know if we're going to ever get to a place where no one ever does anything, but you were talking about that co-learning process, and that there's going to be things that we experience, and it's like going through it and learning how to go through it and how to keep relationships intact. And if there is harm, how to address it. So I think what I'm trying to do is normalize. If the goal is to never experience anything, it's going to be really hard to learn. Right. And it's going to be hard to go through life and hear people and understand the impact. And you might not, like you said, you might not know everything that's happening with someone, and you might not know the depth of the impact because you're not that person. But could I be here with them?
Right.
Could I just be in that moment and learn from this experience and do differently later? And I hope I'm making sense.
No, you are.
Okay. So
you are. And I just want to, I've got my coach's hat on now. I got my athlete and coach hat on. We try so hard as coaches to create a real competition-like feel in our training, right? I mean, we'll never be able to do it, but we try as much as we possibly can so that our athletes are ready for every scenario. They feel the pressure. We bring spectators into the workout. We do all these different things to try to make it feel like a real competition day. And that's really what we're doing when we're doing our training, is we're trying to make it as real but safe. As a coach, that's what I did for my athletes, right? I can't let them fight full contact every day and be injured, right? So I got to still make it safe. I've got to make it safe for them to train, try to internalize some of these skills, but be a little uncomfortable. If we're not a little uncomfortable, we're not going to grow.
Okay, I'm going to have to use that in various settings, but I will credit you where that analogy came from, because it makes a lot of sense. Okay, I want to be responsible. Go back to that other point that you brought up, especially like relating it to when addressing violence prevention, human safety skills in an organization. There's the part that we talked about. And then there's the part that we hadn't talked about yet that you lifted up, which is, and then people have trauma outside of the workplace. And that comes with them too. Could you just share what that has been like as a result of doing that work?
I think one, it's just literally creating a community first in your workplace, creating a workplace where you can have conversations and you can say, you know what? Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of my uncle who was lost to gun violence. And we had a ceremony yesterday. I'm probably at about 70% today. Create a workplace that you're allowed to say that. My 100% today is 70%, and that's what you're going to get from me. I promise I'm going to get to 70 today. And again, this comes from my wearing my sporting hat, my coaching hat, being able to give my athletes, when they stepped into workout, every workout, even if we train 3 times that day, 1 to 10, how are you feeling? I'm an 8, coach. Awesome. Okay. I'm a 6. I think I did something to my hamstring in the last workout. I'm a 5, coach. I was up all night writing 2 term papers. So now I know I'm going to get a 5, and I trust that an athlete is going to give me to 5 because that's 100% for them today. But it's creating this culture where you're allowed to say that, And then if I were in a team setting or a work setting, I, who am at a 10 today, would pick you up who's a 5. And tomorrow I might be a 5 and you might have to pick me up. But that's the kind of relationships and teamwork we're trying to create. And we don't have enough, where no one is allowed to come in and have that conversation and say like, man, I'm dragging today because I'm just hit. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Just going to the cemetery and dropping some flowers down. I thought it would be okay, but I'm not okay. It's hitting me more than I thought.
Yeah.
I even surprised myself. I lost my home to a fire when I was 14. And I remember the day clearly, but it really hadn't come on my mind in years. I was 14 when this happened. And about 6 months ago, I'm driving home, see the big smoke in the air. And I'm like, wow, there's a big fire over there. Drive.
Yeah.
As I get closer, I see that the smoke is still on my trail, but still on my path to get home. Yeah. I started feeling all these same anxious feelings that I felt like when I was like driving to my home, knowing that it was on fire. And it was a block from my mom's home. So it really created a lot of angst for me. But I would have never thought that I would have that physical change in my body, tightening, anxiousness, stress, head pounding. I had all these real changes in my body that I hadn't thought about in forever. I hadn't thought about being activated by something like that in forever. And just like that, I was taken right back with all those same anxieties and stresses and worry. So it happens. I had no idea that I would react to that like that, but it happens. And people do have those struggles.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that felt impactful. And you're also making me think about the last few months. I have a few jobs, but at one of my jobs, I've been struggling so much, like personally, over the last few months. It got to the point where at work, I had to say that. And we are creating the type of workspace where these things are okay, but I still had my own experience of having to come to the point where I had to say something. And oh my gosh, it was so interesting. I am certain that most people, if they knew all the things that I had been dealing with, they'd be very confused about how I was at work, and they would be very confused. But when I started saying things like, I'm not doing well today, like I could barely be here, or this is my way of taking my mind off of stuff that I just need a break from, I started feeling, oh gosh, there's the part of needing the space, and then there's a part of using the space that I think I'm talking about right now. that's also part of the work. Like, because places can create the opportunity in the room to say these things that we're talking about. And then because it hasn't been historically something that workplaces are doing, it also comes with that internal experience of taking that space for yourself and saying it out loud and what that means, because that also feels like a risk. The created space is one part, but using the space and seeing how it goes is the other part. And I thankfully had a good experience and it helped me keep going. But I'm just thinking, you know what? People do have a lot of stuff going on. And it helps to say it out loud, helps to be in community, it helps to be able to be like, I'm not doing well, I'm at a 1, but I'm here. Is this okay? Yep, it's okay. When we don't hear from you, we know you're here, but not here. Great, thanks.
Right.
I'll check in soon.
Right. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, it took a while. I mean, the example that I gave of my team, it took a while for them to for my athletes to go, coach isn't going to be mad if I say I'm a 6, or coach isn't going to be mad if, I mean, you know, or but really it gave them, I don't know how to explain it, but they were constantly thinking that when they were at a 5, I was thinking they were dogging it. Right. And by able to say I'm at a 5, and then me trusting that their 5 was all they could give me today and being okay with that as their coach, it just changed everything. It changed their confidence. It changed their trust with me. And when you have a relationship of really strong trust between you and your athlete, that's when you're able to go to the next level, right? And the same thing happens in the workplace. That's when you're ready to go to the next level and achieve things that you didn't think you could achieve. So we've got to create those spaces. The potential is incredible.
Okay, look, there's this question I want to ask that I feel like everywhere I go, leaders have this question. And I have my own responses based on a moment, but I think you are the person to ask. Okay. Workplaces and leaders that are making room for the human experience, people coming in with trauma, and that's okay. There's room there to support. There's like this point where accountability to work comes up. It's like, how much can I support without it going so far that there's an employee who's not able to be here or contribute to anything? Like, people really struggle with that.
Yeah,
and I feel like
no, I understand.
No, you go
right?
ahead.
Because we don't want to hurt the rest of our culture if people are feeling like they're doing more, they're carrying a bigger load, or this person who is not carrying their load is not being held accountable. It's funny, we have a mutual friend, Dr. Alonzo Kelly, who was with us at our event. He has this great idea that we don't give accountability rewards. Right? We just use accountability as negatives, like, oh, you're going to be held accountable. But when someone does consistently when they're accountable for all their activities and they're hitting their goals, we don't give them like an accountability reward. Right? So there is a little bit around accountability and leadership that I feel in agreement with Dr. Kelly, which is we need to acknowledge it more. We need to say like, man, you're doing a great job, right? And when someone comes in and says, hey, I didn't do a good job, I didn't hit this on all cylinders, and I get it, we got to go, okay, thank you. That's it. You held yourself accountable. So I think that's really important. And it's all those little things that we need to acknowledge. In my sport, it's fast and furious kicking and punching and spinning. But really one of the key factors is being able to block. Super key factor, right? Because you can have all those moves. If you can't block and you're getting hit a lot and you're getting scored on, you're losing. But blocking is not fun. So people don't highlight it. They don't bring it out. It's not in the stats. It's not in. As soon as I, as a coach, started going, great block, awesome block. Everybody's like, yes, okay,
I gotta do that more.
Yes. So it's acknowledging all those things, even if acknowledging that you just held yourself accountable. Awesome. There's an accountability award. So yeah, it's a tough one though. Again, I believe if you really have that trust and you believe in your team, I don't think anybody wants to be a slacker. It's just me. It's probably a different reason. It's not that they don't want to work. It's probably they're in the wrong place, right? It's not their
Yeah.
passion. They haven't
Yeah.
found their why. I think if you engage people and they have found what they want to do, they will work for you. If you are leading them in a way that you should, or in a positive way, they'll work for you. They'll go to bat for you. My team, my athletes, my family, my coworkers, they go to bat for me, man. I know it. I know it. So, and it's not always about
Yeah.
financial rewards, or it's about they believe in the mission, they believe in they're passionate, we're passionate about the same things.
Yeah. Yes. It's so nuanced. It's person to person, but I like what you're saying. I also feel like it's important to say sometimes when we do something at work, people sometimes feel like it negates other things. So even what you said, praising or acknowledging accountability, I feel like that could also come with people feeling, well, I wasn't able to do this today. It doesn't negate other things. It's in addition to. I'm just imagining, I just know, I've seen enough to know when you lift up one thing and you say something's good, then that somehow means other things are bad. It doesn't mean that. It means this is great. That's what that means. That's
Yes,
okay.
exactly, exactly. It's funny, we're
I
working with a library system in Alameda County. We're doing training with them. And in one of our first meetings with leadership, they said, we really celebrate mistakes because it's a learning opportunity. And the leadership said, we literally go like, yay, I made a mistake. We can learn from this. I was like, that's awesome. That's incredible. Like, man, wouldn't that be nice if we were able to do that, right?
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
You know,
That'd be awesome. It's just like normalizing human experience. It's all okay.
yeah.
Like, I appreciate that. Okay, could you share when we were talking about this topic, you were saying that there's a group of people or certain people that hold the brunt of the responsibility when starting to do this work or when integrating more of that like violence prevention lens. Who holds the brunt of the responsibility to create this type of change in professional settings?
Wow. I would love to see HR take more of a leadership role, or at least an interesting role in what this type of change means. I think you and I have talked about this already, that HR initially was there to protect the employee. That's what they were brought in for. And then it's morphed a little bit to now they're almost there to protect the company. So if we could find this kind of middle ground for HR again, I think it could be very powerful. So one, I think these questions about creating violence prevention programs or trainings or taking assessment of things like dehumanizing behavior in your workplace, I think that needs to come. It would be very powerful if it came from HR. That's a one. But I think I wouldn't even discredit or discount the individual who says, I'm going to lobby for a 2-hour session during International Women's Day. I think it can come from every aspect or every stakeholder in the company. But to have really, truly meaningful change, I think it needs to be comprehensive. It needs to be top down, bottom up, and it needs to have impact in its policies and procedures. It's not going to be easy. This isn't going to be easy, but we need it. We're losing so much. I mean, we've talked about it. We're losing so much every day because people aren't allowed to deal with violence. They're not allowed to talk about it. They're not allowed to have skills to prevent it. If you go through our little pyramid of needs, safety is that second tier. After food and water and shelter, safety is it. So let's create safe spaces. We can't learn if we're not safe.
Yeah.
And if our workplaces aren't safe, if our homes aren't safe, we know that. We know it, but we don't talk about it and we don't answer that question, that problem like we should be.
Yeah. Yeah. When you had said top down, bottom, I was thinking about what happens is, and you had shared this with me offline about middle management. And when when I am thinking about middle management, I'm actually thinking about that in 2 layers too. What happens is middle managers tend to be 2 layers or
Mm.
more, where there's managers and supervisors who are not managing a program, and that there is a lot of responsibility that falls on both. But I have noticed that if there are people who are supervisors but not managers, they're expected to learn and do a lot of things without the type of support that even managers get or access that managers get. So that's even like a tiered part in there. And I'm wondering, like, what have you seen the impact on middle managers be when making this type of change? Because even when there's HR support, there's a lot that comes down to people supervising and managers to operate differently. And I'm so curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, it's definitely one of the conversations that came out of the summit. So we try to have these conversations to discuss, to try to de-silo what's going on. Like maybe there's something we heard in healthcare violence prevention in the healthcare sector about violence prevention that can influence the hospitality sector, that can influence what's going on in libraries. And one of the things that kept coming, no matter what sector we were talking about, is this added strain, this added pressure, this higher levels of burnout, this disconnect with middle management, and the pressure that they're feeling from the top about reaching your goals, hitting your deadlines, and then from the bottom of the day-to-day, day in and out, what's happening to the employees coming to middle management. So it has forced us, really, it has propelled us to change what that working relationship and our training relationship is for middle management and create something a little special just for them because of this dynamic and this added pressure they're feeling. Here, I just thought I've got to convince my C-suite folks that this is important and to fund it and support it and keep it into policies and let me train the individual. And we were kind of like, yeah, these guys will get it. No, they need it more. They need it more. They need the de-escalation skills. They need to make sure that they have good grounding techniques, and they need to know that acknowledge their own communication style and how they may be clashing with other people. So we have refocused a little bit on middle management there.
That sounds like a really, really great thing to be doing. Gives me some thoughts. I'll just put a pin in that because it's not the point of right this very second. I'm thinking about, okay, for people listening, for people who have a desire to do something different, be it one person, be it a team, it could be based on maybe you're a higher level person or HR. Like, what are some practical, tangible things that people can do if there is a desire to be more violence prevention oriented, human safety skill oriented, and maybe if it's even like a recalling back to some of the things we said, but just tangibly speaking, like what can someone do?
Yeah, I just did this really informal workshop for a community organization here at their big event. They have a big gathering of communities event here in Chicago. And we just did a 90-minute workshop on putting the neighbor back in neighborhood. And it was just talking about bystander intervention. If someone just took the time to figure out their bystander skills, I think that would change everything. I really would, because it's a different type of confidence. People don't feel they can intervene. People don't feel they could say something. So imagine if you heard a very inappropriate statement at work, but as a bystander, you felt you could successfully maneuver that and then support someone who was on the receiving end of that. It changes everything. And maybe that person who even said it now has to acknowledge, like, oh, that sounded really, really bad. To me, bystander intervention could be huge. If it's just one thing that we could impart, I think that would be an important one. And letting people know that bystander intervention doesn't mean that you roll up your sleeves and you start a fist fight with someone. That's not bystander intervention. It could be if you needed it, if you felt strong enough or comfortable enough doing something, right? Physical, but it doesn't. It could be just documenting the time of day. It could be the license plate on the car, or what's the date, what they were wearing. That could be bystander intervention, documenting.
Yeah.
It's just these little things that really could change things. And I think people think, well, if you say, can you step up and be a bystander? Everybody goes, I don't know, I can't. But it could be just that. It could just be coming to you after I heard you receive that yucky statement and going, Charmaine, can I get you some water? Can I refill your coffee? Do you want to go get lunch?
Okay, I had a random thought. Why am I saying random? It's not random. I was thinking about that when I had not necessarily thought too much about bystander in that way, because that's not the way it's taught or referenced, but that makes so much sense. And then I'm thinking, sometimes people liken that response when you said it doesn't mean that you have to, go in and fight, although sometimes that's what it could mean. I was thinking about, especially in professional settings, people feel like they have to step up and do this like public shame-based declaration to say something. And that's not even the most effective way to do it anyway. So the call to action isn't necessarily wait for everyone to be there and then strike at the right moment and make sure everyone knows. It's unless something's super egregious, because there's a point to what you said. Sometimes things need to be stopped right there in the moment. Sometimes. But that's not usually the call to action. It's not throwing yourself out there to shame somebody publicly. There are so many other ways to do it. So when you just said know your response to bystander, like that, oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that.
Because how many people come home and they go, man, that guy said something inappropriate and I just didn't know what to do. Or man, that whatever. And we come home and then we go, I don't know. I didn't know. I wanted to do something. I should have done something. When people come to me with that, I usually say, there's still time. When you see that person today, just say, hey, I saw that happen to you. I wanted to check in. Are you okay? That's it. That's all you have to do. It's okay. Even after, you can still intervene and give support.
Oh gosh. Okay. The other thing that I'm thinking about too is in organizations, there is a desire for the public acknowledgement of a lot of things. And as someone who facilitates or teaches people how to be in large spaces or even in small spaces and hold a lot of perspectives and a lot of experiences, sometimes people say things and they aren't things that feel good. Some things are in the moment to say, but not everything is. Otherwise, we wouldn't really get through our moments together. But there's like this desire for people to want everything to be named, and some stuff is that conversation that you were talking about. But there isn't the trust built that conversation will be had offline, because that's not the type of workplace that we have. And because the same people show up and keep doing similar things. So people are looking for, well, obviously something's not happening, but it keeps happening here. And I don't know if there's any one thing to do about it. I just want to name that that's a real dynamic that exists for people, that when there isn't trust that an organization will address, then we are looking. I say we because I've been that person a lot. I'm looking for proof that other people care about the harm that's happening.
Yeah. We see it in sport all the time. Why athletes don't come forward, because they've seen for the 10 times the athletes that did come forward or the 100 times that they weren't supported. So how can you tell me that your policies are one way, even though I'm watching it and seeing it every day? That's difficult. That's the truth of some of the settings and some of the cultures. And those are difficult. And those are the ones who aren't going to give PAVE a chance to get their foot in the door at all. They know exactly what their culture is. They're happy with that person winning a gold medal, and they're going to put up with his behavior or that coach's behavior because he produces gold medalists till the last cow comes home or they retire or whatever. Those guys aren't going to let us in the door. unless
Yep.
it's mandated. But there are a lot of people and a lot of companies out there that really do want to do better and want to get better and care about their employees. But they just think, okay, I've ordered these 3 modules for sexual harassment and I'm taking care of my people. And that's to me where it's got to change.
I'm going to say one more thing and then we can start to wrap up. I have just been like revamping things with our rebrand this summer. Been really clear, trying to be clear with the people that we're working with about our own no harm policy and no secrets policy with the people that we're contracting with. And that we're in relationship with them. And then of course there's that relational component, the workplace culture that exists, and the things that we are wanting to do and not do so that we don't contribute to harm or our own harm. And I'm honestly saying that because you had brought up a very good point. There's a lot of places that this is not the type of work for them. This isn't what they want. If you want the traditional training that says that you did it so you can, I don't know, say you did that training, this type of experience isn't for you because that's not what it is. It's for the people and organizations that really want change. I really appreciate the journey like that you all went on and are still on to create what you're doing. I think it's so cool. I've heard some of the experiences and successes. You've shared them with me, and it's communal, which I love that. It's not, hey, we're the expert, come hire. It's very communal. Let's all, who wants to learn?
Yeah.
You want to learn, we want to help you learn, and let's just do this together. I appreciate that. And I am certain that those that you are working with and collaborating with are growing in that. So I thank you so much.
Thank you for saying that, because I don't think it's been an accident. It's not been an accident that the people that we partnered with early on, because we're new, early on, they've wanted to grow with us.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that's by accident. I think that happened, whatever power of the universe maybe, but it really is. We have been very fortunate to partner with people and do the work with people and organizations that were definitely acknowledging that what's been going on isn't working. And hey, we'll try it. Let's go. And the proof has been in the pudding, and it's been great. But it has been definitely a like-minded community in our partners, that they get it. They know it's going to have to be something different to get a different outcome.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Arlene. I feel like we need to do another episode about some stuff like this topic. The way that you frame things, you use so many different examples and analogies that even made it very relatable to me. I'm already thinking about, I have a training in 2 days, and I'm already thinking about the way to frame it so that it's easily understood. I often struggle with trying to explain to people stuff. You gave several examples, so thank you for that. And thank you for being here and engaging in this super important dialogue. If people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that?
We're Paid Prevention, and that's paveprevention.com, PAVE prevention.com. I'm at Arlene at paveprevention.com. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Check out our website, connect on LinkedIn. I love collaboration. And I know this is going to sound corny, but I'm proud of you. Okay. And keep up the great work. And it's been an honor to have this conversation with you.
You are so just awesome. Thank you, Arlene. If this episode was of interest to you, maybe it's of value to people that you know, please share this with people in your network. Engage in dialogue, reach out to Arlene and people at Paid Prevention, share, subscribe. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can visit our website at livingunapologetically.com. You'll have access to social media handles, email on there. We have freebies. You'll also have access to my book, Bias Conscious Leadership, a framework for leading with action and accountability. I think that is it. Thanks so much for listening or watching. And I hope to hear from you soon. So until next time, bye.